Okay, I think we've got everybody in from the waiting room, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the software career chat. We have 3 alumni with us today who are going to share some information with you about their career fields, what it is that they do, how they got from being a center student into their current field. I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves, so we will get started first with Will Adams.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Will Adams, and I graduated Center College in 2010. Currently, I am an independent contractor, Salesforce consultant. Don't know how many of you all know, but Salesforce is a customer relationship management application, SaaS application. It's one of the top out there that does like I said, customer relationship management. Basically, allows salespeople to go in and track kind of their sales process. But there's a lot more that it can do from all the way from that, the sales process to enterprise resource planning or an ERP setup. My background, graduated Center College, like I said, in 2010. From there, it was the Great Recession. So not the best time to graduate, and similar to now, I guess you could say. And also majored in English, so liberal arts all the way, not a math major, not a computer science major. And from there, I went and actually applied to get an MBA at Belmont University in Nashville, where I'm located. And then I got an MBA with a focus in finance. And then I started in sales. And so what I do really for Salesforce administration and development, a lot of people start this kind of career path off in a sales environment. And so I started off in sales selling an ETL tool. And so what that does is basically just integrates databases. So I started selling that, and then I started selling a web analytics tool after that. And then my final sales career was with a startup, selling basically a mint.com for financial advisors, personal financial management tool. And then from there, I started, we needed somebody to implement our Salesforce instance, and I kind of raised my hand and took that on. And from there, that was 2015. I was actually looking at that today. So started doing that around 2015. And from there, also did kind of product management. I helped manage the Agile board for our product, and also did kind of support and customer support for the team as well. So got a pretty good background in designing a web application for use, really kind of learning about APIs from there as well. At that point, with a lot of startups, it takes a while for them to kind of get going. And I wanted to kind of jump careers and maybe make a little bit more money, which you don't really make too much money in a startup. So I took a Salesforce administration certification, got certified, went to sales ops, and so sales operations strictly. And then I went from sales ops into marketing ops as well. And then over the last year and a half, I started doing basically independent contractor work for Salesforce. So really what I do is I have companies that come to me, say that they need Salesforce assistance. Basically, it's all through referrals. And then I help set up their Salesforce instance. If there's any development work that needs to be done, either I can farm that out or do it in-house. By no means kind of what I do is really strictly a developer. I don't have any serious background in development, but I can work with developers, and I also have the ability to kind of go through, and if there's something that I can pull down off of Stack Exchange and implement, I've kind of got the know-how to do that at the very least. So that's kind of my background. Today, I've been doing this, like I said, for the last year and a half. It's something that's really in demand for Salesforce developers. And it's not terribly hard to break into, I would say. And it also, they have a great learning tool called Trailhead. So if it's something that you're kind of sitting around, you're piddling around for the remainder of Christmas break, and you want to learn a new tool, and one that's in demand and has a lot of career availability, it's definitely great to go off. It's called Trailhead, like I said. So that's it on my end. I think that's about my 5-6 minutes. So, Laura, I'll let you take it from here.
All right, thanks, Will. Great introduction. And I can agree with Will that Salesforce developers are like hugely needed. Like I think our company almost always has an opening for a Salesforce developer, like constantly. So if it's something you're interested in, definitely check it out. And yep, my name is Laura Adkins. I graduated from Center in 2003. Also was very liberal arts. I was in English and music, double major. And I actually had a pretty full career teaching English, both abroad and in the US for almost 10 years. And then at the end of kind of my teaching career, I was really getting into teaching myself how to code and doing a lot with educational technology and developing little custom solutions for myself to make my teaching life easier and automate some things that I had to do for reporting. And so my husband and I moved to Chicago in 2016. And with that move, I took the opportunity to take a year off teaching and did a coding boot camp where I had a very accelerated course. Over 5 months, I learned Python, Ruby, C#.net, and Java, like the mean stack, basically. And after that, I got a job at a software company, and now I work at a company called Relativity that develops legal software for an industry in the legal technology industry called e-discovery. And it's the process when basically like if companies are suing each other or people are suing a company, it's the process where like you have to trade all the documents and like so that you can say like what you're going to present in court as your defense. So we developed a software. We have 3 products right now. A product for that we call server that like companies actually like stand up their own infrastructure and hardware and install the application. And then we have a SaaS solution, which is the one I work on called Relativity One. That is like we host the software and we just like provide the access to companies who buy the hosted software. And then we also have a compliance, security and compliance product called Trace that banks use to try to detect fraud among their like investment bankers and stuff. So it like actively like ingests like all kinds of like phone conversations and text messages and things like that and looks for any like insider trading or things like that. So it's pretty interesting work. And I would definitely say like having the liberal arts background is like so huge, like just being able to talk about various topics and use communication techniques and skills that I learned. And I always think about Center like the ability to learn how to learn, like learning how to learn new things and how to learn like has served me very, very well. Like in the boot camp, having to pick up a bunch of languages, coding languages in a short time, and then being able to apply that in the working world, learning new skills and learning new things very quickly, because the only constant in technology is like change, like things change just constantly. And so being able to pick up new skills quickly is very, very important to success. So I'll pass it off to Mark.
Thank you, Laura. I'm Mark Hisle. I graduated in the not too distant age of May 2020. So I'm definitely a little bit fresh out of Center College here, but I wanted to come in just to give you guys the perspective of someone who just went through what I'm assuming a lot of you are currently experiencing with the great fun that is applying for different jobs out there as a new grad. I'm currently working at Churchill Downs Incorporated as a business and technology analyst, which essentially at this time means that I'm working as a software developer actually over at our Twin Spires site. So I primarily do work as a kind of traditional front-end developer, working a lot with the Angular framework, so in the JavaScript, TypeScript world. But I also get to do a little bit of a full stack style developer role, where I've done a little bit of back-end work in Java as well, And if I'm really lucky and on good behavior, I get to mess around and work with a little bit of our cloud technologies as well. So I don't have a super extensive list of experience here, but previously I had done research right home at Center College with all of you guys, doing a little bit of systems related work, which is actually the role I will be going into here in January. As in my current position, although I normally work as a software developer, my like normal day-to-day routine, it's also on a more business and management focused track. So I get to dabble in lots of different parts of the greater IT world. If any of you are interested in roles as a system admin or database administrator, those kinds of fun things out there. I also did a role 2 summers ago in with computer vision, so lots of back-end related development there as well. And then just a summer ago now, which is crazy to say, I also did work in web development, and I got to do a little bit of work with mobile apps for a company in Lexington. So that's all I've got for right now, since I don't have a super extensive list of experience out there, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you guys may have on what it's currently like out there to apply for a job, what I had to do with all of that, any tips and tricks I might have.
So this was great information from our speakers. What questions do you all have for them?
Could I ask a question? Hello, my name is Aman, and I think I mainly have a question for Mark since you graduated recently. And I'm thinking of like going into web development, and then I kind of have like, I think I want to go into like back end or full stack development, but I kind of want to hear like front end side of it. Like how is the job and like what's fun about it, and then hopefully like how you got into the job.
Okay, sure. So I have to say all of it is definitely fun now. So I guess working on different school projects, as I'm sure a lot of you guys have gone through, is pretty similar style to me while going towards your computer science degree. You definitely get like a general idea of what it's like to develop on a team, and going into a real development role, you'll mostly know what you're doing, but at the same time, you'll have no idea what's going on since it's at such a larger scale. So I guess when related to talking about back in work there, and just to talk a little bit about it. So I haven't done nearly as much back in Relurk, but I'll tell you just a little bit about what I've picked up from there. So our backend developers spend a lot of their time mostly focusing on manipulating and getting and processing data for us. So although we have designated people to design and develop our databases out there, our backend developers, and I believe lots of backend developers in general, spend lots of time doing communications with different databases out there, setting up and maintaining different APIs, and just overall dealing with fitting different pieces of the system together. Whereas as a front-end developer, what I normally do is get that data from these different APIs that I've made out there, and then display it in some form, and then clean it up if needed, along with a few kind of lower level things like dealing with login and authentication and those kinds of things as well. And then if you're a full stack developer, you get to have the fun of dabbling in all of those different things out there. So in our organization, we don't have strictly defined roles of UI front end only guy or you're a back end only guy. I found at a lot of companies, they typically do that just so you can be a professional in the Angular framework if you're a front-end guy, or whatever you may need for other things. But the full stack role typically would entail you kind of being very familiar with the much larger picture of everything going on and being able to pick up different things on an ad hoc basis. And then sort of going into the day-to-day role, if you guys have done any sort of agile style development before, that's a very important thing at our company and the majority of companies out there, from what I've learned. And if they aren't doing agile style development, they're doing something that is a variation or some sort of competitor to agile style out there. So that's definitely really important thing of what we do. So essentially what that means is that every 2 weeks, I'm going to plan out exactly what I'm going to be working on for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to make sure everyone on my team knows what I'm doing and that we can all be in agreement on who's working on what and how the work is distributed there. And then at the end of that week, we present what all we accomplished, and then we plan everything all over again for the next 2 weeks. That was sort of long-winded there. Did that answer your question?
Yes, definitely.
So
Might have a follow-up question later. If anybody else has a question, I'll listen.
Yeah, I'll just add to Mark's answer too. Like, I mean, half the like not only like knowing a specific language or knowing, you know, something is like half the battle is like learning the companies, like how their process for like getting your code, you know, into regression and production and like all the systems there. And it's like different from company to company. And like, you know, the processes are different. Like if you have like a really strong product management group at your company, then that's going to impact like your sprints, like, you know, the agile, like framework that Mark was talking about. So like at our company, the product managers actually like own the roadmap. And so they help with like planning out the sprints and, you know, getting the work prioritized and getting work to engineers. So it can be different depending on like the size of the company, like a startup versus like a mid-size versus like a large company. And, you know, and so half the battle is not only learning the language, but like learning the processes to the company of like how you get from A to B. So it's a huge learning curve in your first role. So
yeah, I would definitely, or I like to personally describe software development as a team sport out there. So unless you're in a pretty small company like one of those startups out there, you're very rarely going to know the entirety of the system out there. Like I work mostly on our marketing related software out there, but we have so much more than that out there. We have 6 different teams that are focused on just on traditional development from there. But I guess speaking on what I think your typical roles would be in a software team, you have your front end and back end developers, like I mentioned before. You have the quality assurance developers out there who don't always have as much of a background in pure software, but a lot of the times they do, and it definitely helps later on. They do lots of the testing for the software out there, although all good software developers should definitely test their work on their own. You have the database developers out there. You have platform specialists, which is a much more specialized role of actually making sure the big picture all fits together. To sum that up, and then if you're on an agile style team, you'll have a scrum master who's essentially in charge of making sure everything is organized correctly, long story short. And then you have a project manager or product owner going from there.
Thanks. If you all don't mind, I have a follow-up question. Is that okay? Okay. Just like as like a fresh grad going into the industry, like I'm not exactly sure like what to appeal to the employers, because there's like Angular, like Mark mentioned, like there's like different frameworks that like you can be familiar with, but also like you guys also mentioned like teamwork and all that stuff. And there's like kind of extracurricular activities that you've done throughout college. So like going into industry, applying for all the jobs, like what do you think is like kind of most important things that you should appeal as a fresh grad rather than like people already working?
I mean, I would say like I mean, I know a big thing at my company and other companies is like your desire to like learn and grow, like to always keep learning and growing your skills and developing yourself professionally, because that's like a huge benefit, right? Like the more, like if you're finding innovative ways to do things, right, then that's like only going to benefit the company. And if you're learning and growing your skills, then you like a lot of companies now like are taking leads from, you know, like Google and Salesforce and these like larger companies of being like talent first organizations and really wanting to attract like top talent and then encourage that top talent, like, you know, to like learn and grow, because of like the benefits that also provides to the company. So I think like all of your background is like centering, you know, having like liberal arts background and being attracted to even a liberal arts college as opposed to like, you know, just going to like a technical school is a huge strength, because you can talk about like your breadth of like knowledge and your experience and how much you just like love to learn in general. And that's going to be a huge strength at any company.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I can pick up a little bit too. So like Laura said, what I definitely marketed for myself there, and from what I found for most junior roles out there, is that they know that you're probably not going to know a huge amount coming straight out of it. And so since you have that disadvantage or whatever you want to call it there, they're definitely going to focus mostly on, does this person have the initiative to go out there and teach themselves new things on their own? So if you have any personal projects on like a resume you have out there or anything along that line, they're definitely going to be a fan of that. Everyone I applied to wanted to talk to me about that little link I had on my thing that led to one of my personal projects, just because that's one of the ways they actually know what your style is. But since they know you don't necessarily know a whole lot about the field yet, they have to take a risk on you by knowing that you are going to be someone who's going to be able to learn something really fast, is going to be okay in a position where they aren't going to be competent at a lot of different things out there, but are still going to be able to roll with the punches and be able to figure their way out through the company and still be effective without having the same amount of experience as everyone else out there.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful.
I had a question for Will and Laura. Have either of you participated in hiring? Could you talk about what you're looking at from your point of view when you get these resumes all the time, right?
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Yeah. There's actually something Joey and I are working on right now.
Gotcha. Yeah. Like, I mean, so many like I said, the desire, you know, any like indicators in the resume, there's the desire to learn. I would agree with Mark that like any kind of personal projects or like, you know, like GitHub links to any like open source like projects that you've participated in, like those are always really good, like just to see kind of what you know and what your style is, you know, going into things. It really is so hard. Like I am such like an empathetic person that every time I get a stack of resumes, I'm like so sad because you just physically can't look through them all. It's like impossible. So like using your network, like please after this, like reach out to me on LinkedIn and like, you know, connect with me. Like if you see, I'll send, I can send Center like the career page for my company. And like, if you see a role you're interested in, like, you know, reaching out to me and saying like, can you refer me? And I can send you a referral link. Like a lot of companies that benefits the person you reach out to. Like I get like a little amount of money from my company if we hire someone that I've referred. So like you can do that on LinkedIn with other companies too. Like if you find someone, when I was job searching after I finished the boot camp in Chicago, for example, like I would find someone either that I had something in common with on LinkedIn, or like we had a mutual connection in common. And if they were at a company that I was applying to, I would reach out to them and be like, hey, you know, I see we know this person in common. I'd love to connect and learn more about your company because I'm thinking about applying for this role. And like 7 times out of 10, they would reach back out and say like, oh, here's a referral link, make sure you use it. So that can be really helpful in kind of getting out of the haystack, making that connection. So.
Yeah, and on the Salesforce end, I mean, it's definitely similar. It's gotten to be pretty competitive for getting Salesforce developers and Salesforce administrators for roles. So like personal branding is one thing that's super important. Salesforce has all the Twitter handles for Salesforce, and everybody who uses Salesforce and is really kind of up there in Salesforce has a lot of great Twitter feeds and goes through and asks people on Twitter. There's Slack channels, like there's local Slack channels for Salesforce developers, Salesforce user groups. I'd say user groups, that might be one thing that you could definitely look into, meetups and user groups, because I know certain languages have their own user groups. You know, in Nashville, I know that there's like a database user group and things like that. And then the GitHub projects and having a GitHub repo is definitely one thing that it's like, if you have that and you've got some pretty good projects on there, it's a huge leg up. As far as kind of looking at resumes, I mean, I've hired interns, a good bit of interns, and just kind of looking for initiative is more than often the thing that I kind of look for, because I've had the options to kind of get interns from top tier schools in Nashville, and then schools that might be mid tier, and you honestly kind of have a little bit better luck with the mid tiers just because they're more willing to work and kind of put the effort in. And I think that's kind of true for center grads as well, because it's kind of, center's great for the middle of Kentucky, but outside of Kentucky, even in Nashville, people really don't know it. And I think you kind of got to prove yourself out there. You've got a great education, but a lot of people don't know that.
Okay, we have time for one last question.
Is anyone else going to be brave?
In absence of the last question, any final thoughts from our 3 speakers? Maybe final last piece of wisdom or final last thought to share?
I do have one super short thing, if I've got it on me. So this is a little bit more IT related, but if you want to read a good book that was recommended to me a little bit about like the overall IT mindset and how to do it really well, I'm a really big fan of this book right here, The Phoenix Project. Taught me a lot about what those project managers out there are actually kind of thinking about the bigger picture. And it also gives you sort of a crash course of the larger IT picture out there. I can send that link to whoever there for the book if you guys are interested.
And it looks like before Will and Laura, before we let you give your final thoughts, we do have one more question from a student.
So I was wondering for like a junior or a senior software project, like what would be appealing to companies that are like looking to recruit someone if we were to like work on a software project in our own time with someone, let's say? What kind of software project would you recommend a student works on in their personal time?
I did so I could just give you I did I would do clones of websites. I did like a clone of Match.com and a clone of eBay, like a commerce site. So things that show that kind of the basic how to develop some kind of website that's similar. Obviously, mine was not as sophisticated as the real commercial website, but yes, stuff that shows that if I hired this person and wanted them to contribute to my software, they could do it, so things that show kind of real world experience, like Mark mentioned, like login and registration, like that kind of stuff is like pretty key stuff to know. So that's what I would recommend.
One last question. So like going in industry, applying for it, is it more important for a fresh grad to know like a frameworks or like algorithm, like kind of lead code type of questions? I'm wondering like which one like I should spend more time on getting ready for things.
That's like, I would say it depends on the hiring manager, which is like a really annoying answer, but like I know some hiring managers who are like, oh, if they can't do algorithms, I'm not going to even think about them. And then I know other hiring managers that are like, oh, if they don't know this framework, then they're not even going to be considered. So it's like, I would say the frameworks are probably like, in my opinion, like a little less important, because I feel like if you know one, you can pick the other ones up pretty quickly. Whereas like knowing like the logic behind coding, that's like my personal thing. But again, it's like, depends.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. This was such an important conversation, so much good, helpful information. If you all can all join me, and I see some thank yous coming through in the chat, but just giving them a round of applause and a thank you. And
yeah, it was a pleasure. And I just put the Relativity career page in the chat if people want to check it out and connect with me on LinkedIn. It'd be great to connect with all of you. Happy to promote center grads out in the world. So put you in touch with other people I know also. So would love to connect people. So just feel free to reach out.
Perfect. Thank you all again so much. All right, everybody,
Thank
have a
you
great
all.
day.
Thanks.
Definitely.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.